1, 2, 3. We are live. Hello, audience. Sorry, we had a last-minute venue change.
There we go.
Okay, we had a last-minute venue change because we could not talk about Prop 9 using the city channel, so we had to use my personal channel. My apologies. I hope you are all finding us okay. I have Kurt Ostler with me. Say hello, Kurt. He's our current council member.
Hello, Kurt. No, hello.
Hang on. I'm trying to check here to make sure that
It's streaming.
we're streaming. So let me double check.
Okay.
Make sure that we're streaming. So maybe Kurt, can you introduce yourself just a little bit? While I'm double checking.
While you're checking, I'm Kurt Ostler. I've been on the city council now, almost 2.5, almost 3 years. I've lived here in Highland 25 of those years. So I have 4 children. All of them went to school. I guess they've all went to Lone Peak. They went to Highland Elementary and Mountain Ridge Junior High. I live over in the northwest part of Highland off 6400 West. So, I've lived in 2 places in Highland. I've lived in the country club for about 1.5 years, right after me and my wife got married. And then we moved over there and built a home off 6400 West. So excited to be here.
So I'm confirmed that we are live streaming. Okay. We have with us in the audience one of our residents.
Appreciate her being here.
And we appreciate her coming. She's like a loyal person that comes to these things and tries to learn. And I really, really appreciate her being here. So anyway, we wanted to talk first about Prop 9, which is interesting. It's actually a version of this has been in place since January of 2019. So let me review with you the timeline of the change of government in Utah County. In mid-January of 2019, some elected officials and I believe maybe a couple other people filed a petition to do a change in form of government. And they had outlined what they proposed doing. They started collecting signatures. The commissioners were a little bit surprised. One of the commissioners was actually one of the petitioners, but they wanted to take some more time and look at specific forms to determine if what was being proposed was really the best one. So independent of the petition process, in February, they approved the creation of a group called Good Governance Committee Board.
And this is February of 2019.
Correct.
Okay.
So they formed a committee. That committee started meeting and finished up their analysis in late May. They presented their findings to the commission in June of that year. The process they went through was they had a number of meetings. I don't remember how many. They invited different groups of people to attend the meetings and share their concerns about the governance that the form of governance the county has right now. I was invited and I came and participated. Yes. Oh, excuse me. I have a text message from someone.
Let's see if I can.
And let me respond. It's from Carrie. Yes, I am doing it. Yes, we are doing it on my YouTube channel. Sorry, can't spell.
But what you're saying, Mayor, is that they kind of put together a committee to look at this, to see what would be the recommendation out of that committee to come forth with what type of form of government might work best for Utah County. Is that kind of the long and short of it?
That is. And aside from the meetings they had, they independently researched what counties had what kinds of forms. They looked both in-state and out of state. And their conclusion was that we should go to a 7-member council, 5 seats that were under districting, and
2 were at large.
And
right?
2 were at large. Yes. Let me pause for a second. You continue.
Okay.
And I'll call this person.
Okay. Why they're pausing? I think so as they came back with a recommendation. I have down what the body or what's going to be the language that's going to be on the proposition or will be on our ballot here that everyone should be receiving. I think they go out the first of next week. So on the ballot language for Prop 9 will be, shall Utah County adopt the alternate form of government known as an executive council, also known as a mayor council, as recommended in the proposed option plan.
Hey, my text isn't working.
And so they kind of go through that option plan. One of the things I think it's important is they talk about this executive power and the administrative power. And I thought, as we talk about, a lot of people hear this administrative and executive. I thought it was important for maybe understanding what is the difference between executive and administrative. Executive is the branch of government that's in charge of executing and enforcing the laws and policies and administering the public business, such as they are the ones that make the laws and the policies. Then you have the administration aspect. The administration is the management of the government, the day-to-day operations. And so as we kind of go through there, the Utah County plan, that what's being presented is that there would be a county mayor. That county mayor would be the county executive and the chief executive officer or the CEO of Utah County government.
I'm streaming now, so.
Need to do anything?
No. Right. And let me.
There's 5 people watching, it looks like.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye. I'm live right now.
Okay, so Mayor, what we were talking about is I just went through what was on the ballot and then what's executive administrative. Any input between that executive and administrative? I mean, that's really what they're trying to say. Hey, we're going to try to change this form of government from being executive or administrative government.
So thank you for stepping in there. So let me just wrap up this intro then. So in June, they gave their findings to the board. The commissioners were amenable to it. 2 of them were, when they were going to vote on whether or not to have it be on the ballot in 2019. I think the day of or the day before, another group filed a petition to do a change of form of government. Let me rewind a little bit. The initial petition started in January. When they saw what the Good Governance Group was doing, they did not, when their time was up, when they needed to file, they withheld their signatures because they wanted to go along with what the Good Governance Group had proposed. So that petition became inactive. The commission needed to vote on whether to do it in 2019 or 2020. They elected to go 2019, although there was, even within the Good Governance Committee, a debate on whether they should rush it through in 2019 or do it in 2020. So another group filed a petition, and so the commission had to wait 6 months to let that petition run its course before they could vote on whether or not to have the change of government proposal go to the elections. So that's why in January, the second group did not get enough signatures. They had 2,900, and they needed 10,100. So they were pretty far off the mark. Then they put this proposal together, which Kurt just reviewed with you, where they said, okay, we're going to go with a 5-member instead of a 7-member committee. It's going to be part-time we are going to have a mayor, and we're going to separate executive from legislative powers. So what does that mean?
Correct.
And what that means is you have a mayor, and one of his duties, as written in the proposal, is to put together an annual budget and present it to the council. And then he has no vote, but he can veto any item on that the council decides, or any line item in the budget. So he has the power to say, he or she, pardon me, the mayor has the power to say, this is a good budget, but I'm going to get rid of this line. If the mayor uses that power judiciously, he or she could limit county growth and influence budgets. So although currently today, every department puts its own budget together, he would be the one that would be meeting with
Each department head.
And saying, going through the budget and being able to say, do you really need that? Do you want that? And because the power vests, he has vested power to veto something, that they're going to be more apt to negotiate with him.
He's the CEO of the county.
Right.
I mean, he's going to be a chief executive officer there. He has a check and balance if you want to say of a board, and
Right.
that if they don't like it, they can kind of come in, and then he can veto if they don't.
Right.
And I think
they can override the veto.
I think it was 75%. So if we have 5 council members, it's going to take four to come and make that override.
Or 3 if one of the council members can't make it, because you still got 75%.
Okay, that's true. I guess one council member could sit out that day to get to the 3. So.
Right. So that could happen. I think personally, I think it's a good check and balance. There is concern about what other executive powers the mayor has. Can the mayor issue, for example, a mask mandate, or
and that's what we see up in Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County, there's mask mandate.
Now, the council is the one that defines the law around that. So the council could say, yes, you can. If there's a legitimate emergency, you don't want to have to wait for everybody to get together, but you can put a box around that. You could say for 2 weeks or 1 week or 48 hours. And so they could put the mayor in a box saying, yes, you can do it, but within 48 hours or 72, 20, whatever they come up with, you have to get approval from the legislative body, or that order is null and void.
So I thought, maybe if we talk about what the mayor's powers, what their proposed changes, of course, he's going to become the CEO. The wage would be $120,000. I mean, so right now we have 3 council members that are full-time.
Right.
And
commissioners.
Commissioner, I'm sorry. They got 3 commissioners that are full-time, making a full-time wage.
Right. And I think that's 120 right now.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them are 120,000.
Yes.
So they're proposing that the county mayor is a full-time position, 120,000, plus they get all the benefits similar as a Utah County employee.
So in government, that typically is around 50-ish%.
Yeah, it could be high.
So now you're talking about a total package expense to the county of 180 roughly.
Yeah, 180. So then you have that we mentioned the veto power.
Right.
The mayor would have the veto power. The mayor puts together a budget.
Yep.
I think one thing that is interesting, the mayor is the one that can appoint for the board.
Yes.
And I didn't learn this until the council. I didn't understand this. What that means is no name can come to it's really the mayor that presents the name and the council approves. But if the mayor doesn't present the name, the council can't approve.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we're seeing right now in the presidential side. We're seeing, hey, it's really the president of the United States that presents if it wants to be that chief justice, the Supreme Court. It can't really, they can give suggestions, but he has to present, but he can't confirm. And that's what we're seeing here at the county government. They want to have the mayor would have to be the one that's over the boards, gets to decide on the commissions. I think that's important. The council would, so that is the executive side. The mayor becomes the executive. Then it's going to go to county commissioners, or county council would be 5.
Right.
They're going to be part-time.
Right. 20K each.
They're going to make 20,000 each, but they are the legislative side.
Yes.
They're going to be the ones that have the power to make the laws, enforce the laws,
approve the budget.
Correct. approve the board member, if there's board members. It will take at least 3 of the members to form a quorum. If there are 3 of them together, they form a quorum.
Right.
That's very similar to what we see in Highland really right now.
The city council.
As the city council side, the county council would be very similar. However, our mayor in Highland is not an executive position where you're in a sense, a CEO full-time.
No, it's not. And I don't have veto power.
Yeah, you don't have veto power.
Which would be really nice sometimes.
Sometimes he likes that. The council maybe doesn't.
Yes.
Now, I think one of the things is each council member is going to be elected geographically.
Correct. So what does that mean? That means currently, and this is one of the pros and cons issues, that currently the 3 commissioners are elected by everybody in the county.
Yeah, and then at large.
Right. So we all elect them. In a new case, you'd have 5 districts, which they've already mapped out. You can
and they're equal population wise,
roughly,
and they'd be redistricted each time there's a census, whatever. They're going to readjust that. Yeah, do a readjustment.
So that's in play. Now, if I'm running, then I only have to send mailers to the district.
Correct.
Instead of the whole county, which means it costs less to run. And I have fewer people that I need to talk to run. So there's going to be more access while I'm running to people. I don't have to cover the whole county, just my limited district. When I'm in office, I'm supposed to look at things from the point of view of the whole county, but I am somewhat beholden to my district.
And that's also the concern of some is this new proposal is that maybe that person that just comes only from that one district is only looking at district issues, right, is going to be advocating only for their district. And maybe if there's a stronger personality over one, or if there's what we call horse trading politically, right, maybe they horse trade to get something done in their district. That's one of the concerns I have heard also voiced.
Yes, and that's a legitimate concern. Mm-hmm. It probably happens anyway.
Yeah.
Even in a council, there are people with their own special interests because they're their neighbors, right? You have to live with them every day, and you have to do things that maybe your neighbors don't like, but are generally good for the city or your friends, your circle of friends. So it does create an opportunity, maybe an additional opportunity for that to happen.
It can get government closer to the individual by being in a district, and also can create the issue.
Yes.
I mean, you can see that there's both concerns.
So there's always pros and cons. Yeah. It's never black and white. So you have on the pro side, it costs less to run, which means more people might run. Right. You have one representative representing a smaller number of people and therefore providing better access. And if I live in this district, I know who I'm accountable. I know who to talk to. Now it's kind of hard to know. You know, we have someone from PG, someone from Alpine, and someone from South County, and so it's harder to know who to talk to. Sometimes it's somebody that knows them, but which one do I call? That's a difficult thing. Now, going back to staffing, currently each member of the commission has an assistant.
So there's a cost there. They're right. Full-time, they're getting paid 120, then they have an assistant.
So if we do the math, it's actually 180 times 3.
With the benefits, it's 120 plus the 60.
So 540.
Okay, yeah.
Is my math right there? 540.
121, yeah.
And then the assistants, and I'm going to assume assistants are in the, let's just say 80K.
So with benefits, they're 120.
So now you've got another 120, and you're looking at 360, and you're 900K.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the new form, you've got 180K plus 100, 280.
What are you saying? The 100 is the 5 council members at 20,000 each, no benefits.
Right. Okay. And then the 180, that gives you 280, and then you're going to have probably two, maybe 3 assistants. Certainly, the mayor will want an assistant, a deputy to help, and that would be more than likely a little bit higher paid position.
That's where the issue Salt Lake County's come into, is that I think it was with Mayor McAdams, he had 4 assistants,
right,
And now you have with Jenny Wilson up there, she now has 6 assistants, with the top one making, I believe the top one is making well over 200 and some odd thousand. I have $276,000 is the highest paid position there in Salt Lake County. That's where everyone gets so nervous about the proposal.
Right. So that would be 180K plus benefits roughly.
Yeah.
That's true. That can happen.
I mean,
However,
that's what the fear is going on.
The council has to approve that budget.
Correct.
Right? So that can't happen without the council having some involvement on that. So
what you're saying is there's some checks and balances. It's not just the mayor getting to be unreasonable, starting to add all these expenses. It's the council has to agree that those expenses are warranted.
yes. Now, it is a risk, but the commissioners could be doing that today. They could say, I need more than one assistant because I have lots of work. They haven't, and I think I've met all of them, and I know 2 of them, and they're really effective, good public servants. They don't abuse their power. They're very helpful, which I appreciate. So it's going to be a little bit less. I don't know how much less when you factor in the assistants, because you're at 280. You could add another, let's say 180 times 2 or 3, and now you're back close to, but I don't think you would exceed the 900.
I think the newspapers actually did the concern is if we do what Salt Lake County is doing. The proponents that are for this, they believe there's a 34% possible savings by doing the new form of governments versus what we currently have. When you said 900,000, they figure there's a 34% savings.
So they're looking at about 600 then, which makes sense given what we just talked about. It could be in that range.
And so that's, what's interesting is you have those who for it are saying there's a savings, and you have those who are against it saying it's going to be big government and get bloated. So you have both of them kind of saying, hey, we got to be careful with our tax dollars, and they're kind of both pitching both ways.
They are, and it's pick your poison. I just don't think personally that anyone can adamantly say we're going to be like Salt Lake, because we could be like Salt Lake today if we elected the right people. Now, one thing we talked about a little bit, Kurt and I talked about this about maybe 15 minutes ago. So we haven't really strategized on how we're going to have this conversation, but you did point out that one of the issues with 3 people is with the open meeting laws, it's difficult to meet
and discuss
with 2 people because now you have a quorum. Now, theoretically, you should be able to meet to discuss administrative items, 2 on 2, or even maybe 3.
Yeah, but people are going to be nervous. They're doing legislative items. I mean,
because it's one hand. So it's the appearance of evil, it's optics, and there's always a risk, right? You're talking about one thing and then something pops up and now it's legislative and it's just part of the conversation. Maybe you're talking about a budget item that is something that the council would need to approve or the commission would need to approve. Do we really want to do this? Yes or no? Well, now you've gone from budget to legislative without even really thinking about it.
And when you get on a phone call, I mean, if you look here in Highland, we're the 5 council system, right? And so if you have 3 council members, we have a problem. And I've noticed it's really hard that if you want to discuss something or get information, sometimes you're going, hey, I want to understand your position before we get to council meeting, or maybe you have information. You can't, you have to call that one person or meet with that one. You can't have 3 of you together. Mm-hmm. So I look at the county commission, that has to be hard. You can't even pass an idea by, because if 2 of you together, you've created a quorum.
Yes.
And I'm going, I can see that causing, to me, some issues. Now they've functioned with it, but I think right now, one of my concerns I see with the county government, with the 3, it seems like there's always 2 and 1. It always seems that 2 are together and you have 1. And if we have that in a 5 council system, sometimes you do get buddies. Sometimes you get buddies on a council and they always are going to vote that way. We've seen it. I think every city is going to see that. Well, now if you get 2 buddies that are doing it, they've got their quorum. Where if in a city with 5, if they get the 2 buddy system, they still have to get one other to buy in on.
Yes.
And so I mean, I can see, there's, to me, that's it helps me as a better perspective.
So another issue with that I see, and from my point of view, it's critically important, is it's important to have relationships with the people that you're working with in governance. And I know Kurt and Scott and Tim and Kim and Brittany, they often meet 2-on-2, talk about things, go look at some issue in the city. I have lunch with people occasionally, or we meet, do the same kind of thing, go tour and look at this problem. So we have an opportunity to create relationships by spending time with each other and develop friendships. And in all relationships, you're never gonna agree all the time.
Correct.
I would consider Kurt a really good friend.
I agree.
But we don't agree on things occasionally. And it's okay, but because I like him and I know his heart is good, I'm more apt to listen to him and really think about, well, does he have some valid points there? And think about them much harder than if I didn't have a relationship with him. And
I think it makes a better council, because if you don't, even though you might not agree on things, but you have a relationship, it doesn't make it so contentious.
right.
It makes you value the other person's opinion, because I'm willing to listen to your opinion because we're friends.
Right.
Where if it's adversarial, you're going, that's just a stupid idea. You're not really going to kind of value that person's opinion. And so I do agree with you on the friendship. At least you need to have a workable relationship, and I think that's an important aspect of government.
Yeah, and that just takes time. So some things in life take time. Creating relationships take time, and it can't be, I see you in the hall, and you have to spend time with each other outside of what your normal day job is. And so I value that. I just think back, I remember when Brian and I were on the council, we got into some really, I wouldn't call them heated, but good discussions, and we were on opposite sides of the table, and we would banter back and forth, but at the end of the meeting, we were still friends, right? And he came over to my house one time and moved me on an issue that I was pretty hard on, and got to a place where, okay, I see where you're coming from. I think it's better overall if we do it this way instead of the way I want us to do it. And that happened because he came over to my house. We sat down in my living room and talked about an issue. But if you're not friends, you can't really do that.
Well, I agree. And so as we talk about, going back to the county council system, the 5, you can see that, you see the 3, I think one of the big things why we're starting to see this even out here is Governor Herbert made the following comment. He says, Utah County is the epicenter of dysfunction. That dysfunction is driven in part by the Utah County outmoded, unresponsive, and unrepresentative form of government. And so I think that's strong when our governor comes and says, we're having some issues down in Utah County, and he's equating it to the government, development that's going on.
Yeah, that's a really good quote. I want to read you another quote from the guy that was the chair of the Good Governance Committee, the Good Governance Board. He said this: arguably, the 3-commissioner form of government is one of the most efficient forms of government because it only takes 3 people to come together, discuss an issue, and then act. It does not require a unanimous vote, only a simple majority, 2 of the 3, to approve or block anything. Is this good governance? And then he says, I would argue that the effectiveness of Utah's form of government is less than ideal because it can be easily manipulated by special interests and personal ideologies. So he does say that it is more efficient. You can get things done faster, but a lot of times you don't want government to go fast, because sometimes when government sets up something in motion, it is super hard to change, which leads me to a good friend of mine who's opposed to this. I have several really good friends that are opposed to this. And she made a really good point. Her point was, well, why don't we do this incrementally? Go to the 5 commissioners or 5 council first, and then if we need to later add the mayor. Valid point, right? Now, how would you counter that? What would you say to, how would you say, well, a really good point, but maybe we don't need to do that. And on that side of the equation, there are counties that have council executive forums in Utah and outside of Utah that can be looked at, and how those operate and function. So it's not like it's something new that we're experimenting with. It's been around, and most of the cities are 5 council members and a mayor.
Correct.
Provo has districts for some of its council members. I don't know if they're for all council members.
I think they have a couple at large, and I think they have some that's their districting.
And school boards, they're all district, right? In our state, we have legislative districts for both the House and the Senate, and only a few offices, state attorney general, auditor, and governor, lieutenant governor, are elected by everybody as a whole. And I don't see people lobbying to change school board districts and get rid of them and say everybody needs to vote on all school board members, nor do I hear people saying, well, we need to get rid of legislative districts because a much broader set of people need to be voting on these individual legislators, because that would make it more representative.
And I think our whole key is what makes better government for the people. I mean,
Yes.
we're going, okay, is 3 council members better representative of the people in the county? Do they feel like they have a better, way to be able to govern the county and for the residents to have communication? You only have to reach out to 3 or get 2 of them to agree on it, versus when you go to the 5, but you have 1 in your district. Is that better form of government? Getting closer to the individual, getting closer to your specific area, and that's where I think that they're going to have to try. I have to decide. I'll admit, Mayor, I've come in and I'm going, I can see both sides. These are one that you're looking at. Yeah, there's some that maybe, okay, I think you're maybe going to lean a little more here, and that's part of that voting process.
Yeah, it's not black and white. No. It's not. There are pros and cons. You can probably tell where I'm leaning, but do I think somebody with a different point of view is evil or bad, or doesn't have the best interests of the county and the residents in their mind? No.
I mean, I want to know, why did Salt Lake feel it's so important to go get 6 of these deputy, I mean, and they're paying $276,000 with benefits to one. I mean, what is the rationale to expand government so much? Now, maybe they're saying, hey, I'm going to have one over the inland port. I'm going to have one over the airport. I mean, they have different business interests going on, and maybe they're being funded by other things.
Right. Their budget's significantly bigger than ours.
Yeah, I actually think the airport's out of Salt Lake City.
Right.
So
the county budget is the Salt Lake County budget is much bigger.
Well, they have all their libraries are connected up. I mean, they run and function different than Utah County.
Right. And so what the county does and how it operates isn't going to change with this form of government. It could change in the future, but it could change with the way it is today. And look, they passed the tax increase last year that many people didn't like, and some people saw the need for it. And they did that with 3, right? Yeah. So why?
Well, no, only 2 voted yes, 1 voted no.
But they did it with a 3-member commission.
Yeah.
So to me, the argument that your taxes are going to go up if they go to 5, well, maybe they will, maybe they won't, and over time they have to because of inflation.
But is it better representation? I mean, like I said, what is really the government there for? Are we going to, we don't want to have big, most of us don't want big government, and there is fear
there's
about.
A good question. What constitutes big government?
Yeah.
Is it the number of elected officials? Is it which, as a percentage of the overall county budget, is less than 1%, right? Or is it the control that they have over you and the programs and authorities that they have? To me, that's big government. When you expand the functions of government, what you're doing.
Correct.
Right? If you're changing the governance structure and you're not changing the power that the county has over you, I don't know that I would consider that big or small government change, right? Whether it's a 3-member commission or a 5-member council or 7-member council.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it really matters who you elect more than most things.
Well, and I think that's, to be very open, even true up in Salt Lake. I mean, you've seen, and it is, some of it, I think people are saying, hey, is it because some have political ambitions? Maybe they are a council member or a mayor in a city and they want to go to the county. Now the county, they want to go state, or they want to go up in the governor's office. You can't ever say never. That's not a reasoning, but.
Right. And everybody that is in office, me included, had some ambition to get there, right?
Yeah.
You had to feel that it could be.
You can make a change, or you felt like you want to get involved.
I want to get involved. I want to fix a problem. And then you have people, and I don't think this is the majority of them that say, oh, I want it for the glory. And trust me, if you're Tanner Ainge or a council member or a mayor, you get a lot of grief about all kinds of things because you make decisions and vote on things that people don't like.
Well, you bring up Tanner.
I mentioned Tanner because
he lives here in Alpine. I actually went up by Tanner's home. It was actually a Sunday afternoon. We were having a little family gathering out in a park area because of the COVID thing. And we were up by Tanner's home, and there were petitioners out on the corner sidewalk by Tanner's home. So when you talk about, hey, yeah, it's great to be elected. Well, I don't know if his wife wants to come out and he wants and have people there right there, in a sense, picketing in front of you.
Yes.
Now they have a cause area on the sidewalk.
Right.
They have the right to protest. But that's that elected side. It's not fun to get an email where someone didn't like what you did and is attacking you.
No, it's not fun. Sometimes they're even your friends.
Yeah.
Right. It happens. And it's okay, but there are pros and cons to being in office. And
as we talk about some offices, there's some who are elected officials that made statements. Here's one statement by a councilwoman in Mapleton, Leslie Jones. Selling the benefits of the change of government is how it benefits Utah County as a whole, but is selling as a cost savings is like selling oceanfront property in Arizona. It speaks contrary to logic. So that's a person that is not in favor. We have one of our local mayors, Jenny Reese, having a statement stating, having served as a city elected official in Utah County for almost 9 years, I have seen firsthand our current form of county government doesn't work well for the county of our size. Now I think, I guess what we call full disclosure, I think Jenny's been very vocal. Mayor Reese has been very vocal out there. She's been tied to maybe possibly run for mayor if it passes,
which would be fine.
I just, I think she takes a little bit of flack because that. It's not necessarily I don't know if she's ever mentioned it, and that's up to her. But
right,
I've always found Jenny to be a good person.
She's a good person. Whoever runs, they're going to have to get elected still, right? And any of the mayors or any of the council members I know could run, or a former commissioner, right, could run again. It could run for commission, for council or mayor, and they would all bring with them different qualities that you would like. So,
here's a quote from one of our current county commissioners, Tanner Ainge, he's in favor of the change.
Right.
He says, I support the change, and so do the vast majority of our local mayors, state legislators, and many of our business leaders. Without the change, we continue with the 3 full-time commissioners who operate both as a 3-head executive and 3-member legislative body. With the change, the executive power would go to an elected full-time county executive, while the legislative power would go to a separate 5-member legislative council. And he posted that on social media in August.
Yeah.
So what's the best way? I think.
So I'll just tell you, I serve on a committee, a council that deals with transportation issues largely, but is composed of all the mayors. And that is an accurate statement to say most of the mayors support this. And most of those mayors have no interest in county government whatsoever. In terms of running, I don't think, or I should say a majority. Well, that's most, right?
Yeah.
So more than 50%, I'm quite sure I have no interest in it. So they're not supporting it because they're ambitious. They're supporting it because they've seen the problems, which to me comes back to it's 3 people can't spend a lot of time together without getting in hot water about
Your
local meetings. And so they don't always have really strong relationships with each other. And like you said, when there's three, it's almost always two and one out. Now, if you look at all the votes they take, they're probably unanimous on most of their votes, because like in our council, there are a few things that we're divided on, but most of the things.
Very, like you said, very rarely is it really a 3-2 vote. Sometimes you get a 4-1, but probably 85 to 90% of our votes are everyone's vote. I mean, you just look and go, okay, we're moving through a business aspect, if you want. One of the opponents against, their concern is that person elected is only representing 20% of the group. They're not really representative of the whole county, which
is fair.
Yeah, and that's.
But on the other hand, like with the current people, we've got a PG and Alpine and a Spanish Fork.
Okay.
Right? What about everybody else?
Yeah, where's Orem and Provo is what you're saying. Our most populous, or even Lehigh.
Lehigh, Saratoga
Springs. Saratoga, Eagle. Some of our most populous areas don't have anyone representing there.
So again, pros and cons.
Yeah.
Not black or white.
Like you said, you could argue, well, hey, look at this. You have the same problem over here, and so it's.
It is interesting. One of the things that I've heard recently was, why are we rushing this? Well, it started in January of 2019, and there were been a lot of discussions. And when they went with just the 5-member commission, that second petition, they didn't even come close to getting the number of signatures.
Well, I think what they were proposing, the petition, I think they wanted 2 at large and 5 districts.
No.
Oh, so just 3 districts?
So the original proposal that the Good Governance Board, Advisory Board came up with was 5 districts, 2 at large, and 1 mayor.
With 3, a total of 5 commissioners, right?
No, that was
5 county commissioners.
That was the original one. The second petition was 5 commissioners, 3 districts, and 2 at large. And that's the one that didn't get enough. But that was discussed. There were articles in the paper. So this isn't something that happened. And then when the commission voted in January, rather than go with the Good Governance Board recommendation of 5 districts and 2 at large, they went with just 5 districts. And I think that was a compromise with this second petition and a way to keep the cost down. So there was movement even then on what it started with.
I mean, I know there's a concern depending on how much business there needs to be in the county. I mean, right now, the county commissioners being full-time, 3 of them, they're there every day, they're functioning. As you go to a part-time, they're going to probably have a job.
Hopefully.
Or
maybe they're retired.
Or they have, or other aspects going on. I'm not sure most city governments function that way. That's why if you have a full-time mayor, and Rod, I've appreciated. I know that you're not getting paid full-time. You're not really full-time, but I think you've given a lot of time here in Highland. That you're very available to residents when they need to be here. You're not just saying, hey, on a Thursday between 3 and 4, I'll be in my office. I think you're fairly widely available. So, it kind of gives a little bit of a feel.
Yeah. And so it just depends on who you're elected and what their life circumstances are. You do have cases where, people sign up and they say, well, this is my job and I'm going to spend 10, 15, 20 hours a week and that's what it's going to be. And then, like, you spend a lot of time on this. You talk to people, you go visit with people. So I call it's kind of like being scoutmaster or primary president or whatever. The job can take up as much time as you're willing to give it. And so you'll have.
It can consume all your time. That's one thing I did not understand. It can consume all the time you want to give it.
Right. And then if you get on Facebook, you can that could be a black hole and comments and all that's really valuable. Right. The dialoguing with residents is really valuable. So yes, they're going to be paid part-time, but they're going to be working a lot more. And I suspect over time, those might become more than part-time positions.
And there's the concern about the increasing government.
Right. Which it's not increasing government per se. You're not.
Well, the expenses.
You're increasing expenses, right? But So I would want to differentiate between saying increased government, meaning in my mind, more control and authority over you, or more services that you're providing that you weren't providing before, versus just more employees or staff.
Well, and we do have to take, Utah County is growing just so fast right now. I mean, if you go, if you went out to Saratoga, Lehigh, out there on the west side, you go mountain, you go down into the Salem and the Spanish Fork, and even Highland, we're all just growing so fast right now that there's gonna be different issues facing that we're not aware of that we're gonna have to face. Maybe we're getting a bigger airport. We're starting to Allegiant Air, I think, is now adding a Provo flight. They have one going to Mesa. I mean, things start to change in 10 years. It might look different down there at the airport and how everything's working.
And it is Provo's airport, but the county did help. There was work done there, and that actually brings about one of the pro-con things is that when there's growth, what happens is new cities get created or city grows, and they take county land. So with the land the county has authority over is diminishing. However, things like the sheriff's office, yes, their jurisdiction might be shrinking. They still have like canyons and a lot of work, but the prison is something that all the cities use because it's a county resource. The county attorney, a lot of crimes, if they're felonies, they go through the county attorney. The health department, there are federally mandated programs that the county administers to everybody. So as the county grows, those service requirements grow. So the budget will end up growing. It'll be different because there'll be less land issues and more.
Oh, like I said, I was just going to say, because when I heard first said, hey, they're going to have less people, they're going to be more governed by the city, I go, well, they should start to shrink. But like you said, it doesn't. Their role is different. They're a county role, and they're just start functioning as the land use authority,
right?
Maybe is on things. So.
And they'll still be county roads that service multiple cities.
Yeah, MAG, Association of Government.
And so they issue funds. We do things jointly with other cities. We identify roads as this is not just a Highland problem. This is a Highland, Lehigh, American Fork issue. Like 68,000 is going to be, or the East-West connector that was all in Highland, but it actually benefited American Fork, Cedar Hills, PG, Highland.
Well, and I think Alpine, the way they come down, they'll benefit too.
Yeah. So there are projects like that we have to get together and decide we want to fund it. And then that money can't come from the city because let's just look at the East-West connector. That's going to end up being over $10 million for that one road. And our annual budget is $10 million for our general fund, right? We could not afford that. Even the road to Costco, that's going to be like 2.2 million-ish. And that would be a big hit if we had to do that all along. So we do need the county. We do need the other resources that it has. This is just an interesting question. I apologize for this, but I do get a little bit dismissive when people point to Salt Lake and say, well, you're going to be like them. Well, we could point to other counties and say, well, they're doing a similar thing and they're not like Salt Lake.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to come down to who's elected. I mean, it's even now with the 3 county commissioners. It depends on who we elect. It all comes down to who the residents see is going to represent them the best. And if you don't like it, you can always vote them out.
Yeah. And there it is a challenge too. Like if you elect somebody, local officers, county and city, there's no recall in Utah. So you're stuck with them. But I think if you have 5, if you get one that you're not happy with, you've still got 4.
As we're talking about voting, I think I read something that they're going to have the 5, but there's going to be 3 districts that are going to be, the first vote's only going to be for 2 years.
Right.
The person gets on for 2 years, the county council, and then 2 of them would be for 4 years. And so then they come up, and so they're going to be on every.
Have to be a rotating.
Yeah, a rotating, so it's not all 5 come at one time up for election.
Like most cities have that. One year, one city election, it's 2 councilmen and the mayor, and the other city election is 3 council members.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that when you look at turnout, so this is not part of this discussion necessarily, but when it comes to voter turnout, there's significantly higher turnout when it's 2 council members and the mayor. But in reality, the mayor doesn't vote. So if you want things to happen legislatively,
It's the 3.
it's the 3 election is more important than the 2 and the mayor. But that's okay. It's just how it is. Have we beat this horse to death? Are there any questions that are out there? I didn't see anything on comments.
Is there any right here?
I'm not seeing any that way. There it is. What if we want to expand the county government, but want some more input on exactly how it would work? Well, you have, what we have before us is a yes or no. So if you want more input, then you'd have to say no.
What you're saying is no one can, so they can come back with another proposal.
Another proposal, and it could be a petition, or the county could come forward with one. There is a state statute that says you have to wait 2 years to do that. So if we said no now,
It's 2 years
it's
no matter
2
what.
years no matter what. But like I said, I pointed out that this has been discussed for a long time. I know because it's on the ballot, a lot more people are interested in it, and maybe they don't feel like they've had a chance to participate. But the process has been in play for about 1 year and 3/4 already, January of 19 to October of 2020. So a lot of people have looked at it. You know, you can always look at it more. I just don't know when you pull the trigger on things sometimes. So, but that's a valid point. What if you want input? Well, this is binary, and you have 2 years to do it. And my understanding was when the county comes forth with an option, it can't be an A or B. It had to be this or nothing. Yeah. And the same thing with the petition. If a petition gets filed for a change of form of government, it is what it is. Now, I personally would rather not see it go through a petition, because I think then you're limited to whatever the input was from the people who drove that petition, right? So in order for them to put it on the ballot, they had to create it first. Whereas I think what the county did back in 2019, where they formed this board comprised of 15 people from government, education, and private sector to look at the problem, or look at the issue and see what the right solutions were going forward. I think that was a good approach. I suppose they could do that again, but they did go through hundreds of people actually went and met with that board and shared their input.
Good.
And there were only 5 that didn't think that it should change. Everybody thought it should change. The question again, at the end of that initial thing, the question was, do we do it in 2019 or do we do it in 2020? Personally, I'm glad it went to 2020. It did provide more time.
So we have residents are going to fill both ways.
Yep.
I mean, this is one I recommend they study it out. Yep. There's several newspaper articles out there. When you get the ballot, there's information in there where they've allowed them to come in as those who are maybe for or against. And so I think there's some good information for those who want to get educated.
Okay, I am getting a link right now to a document that I shared with Kurt, talked about just a little bit before the meeting. And it has links to the different sites, the pro-con sites. It has what we've seen are the issues, and then rebuttals in italics to the major points. It's by no means comprehensive, but it is a starting point. You're welcome to look at that as a resource. It has a link to the ballot. It has a link to the pro website, to the con website. It has a timeline of how this happened. And if anybody finds things that are missing, feel free to let me know and I will add them to the document. It's a Google Doc, and I didn't make it editable by everyone, because that would be kind of scary. You could have people doing things, but if you see something that you think is missing or want added, feel free to let me know. Thank you, Robin, for your question. Lynn, thanks for your insights on the proposed change of county government. Thank you, Lynn, for watching. I appreciate that you're here. Lynn used to be an employee with the city over finance, and he has a solid grounding in how government finance works, so he's qualified to have opinions.
I'm surprised there's even some even watching, so we have the big debate tonight.
Yes. Well, I'm recording that.
I am.
So, and by the way, this will be on the channel that it's on, so if you found this of value, you can share it with a friend, and they can watch it later when we're done. So if there's nothing else, I will move on to ask Kurt. Now, Kurt has been a council member for almost 3 years now. And so let me ask you a question. Is there anything different about being a council member than you thought when you were running?
The political side, or decision processes, the slowness of government.
That can be frustrating, can't it?
Yeah, but I've actually learned to appreciate, because I think it's important. So you don't want to rush a decision. I always look and go, we're making a decision for all of Highland, and it doesn't seem, there's some things that have to be timely done, but most of the time it doesn't. So I don't think the slowness of government, at the first it frustrated me, but now it seems to work. I have really enjoyed, there's some things, I didn't realize how much the city worked with the state, meaning, that the state really dictates there at the legislative what happens in the city. And so as a city council or as city, we have to watch what they're moving through the legislator, and either have our voice heard, be involved to know what's going on. I did not know that. I've been a little bit surprised at decision making sometimes, because it does become political. And I guess that's why you have to run for election. And it's, as a business member, you're going to try to make the best, decision, maybe to increase your business, to help an employee. Sometimes, there's some other forces at play. How come decisions are made?
Yes, true. Now, I will tell you, when Kurt joined the council, was when I started being mayor. We ended up going to the Capitol a lot that first year, and that was, I hadn't spent as much time before as we did then.
Well, we went to the mayor's office. I mean, not the mayor. I mean, the governor's office. Remember, we went and met. It was over the East-West Connector. We were showing up to the USDC meetings. We were making sure the state legislators knew our concerns with that road and how it was all coming together. And that was an eye-opener. I had no idea how involved we need to be with anything that way.
Yeah, and one of the meetings we were in, we got lectured pretty hard on.
That we're elitists?
Yeah. On some things, and that's the gentleman that did that ends up, I'm friends with him now, but it was interesting. The getting that road through there were a lot of politics in that.
Well, so we brought the comment being elitist. What it was is that there was a proposal on the USDC property by Lone Peak High School that maybe to have 1,100 homes. Well, if you live in Highland, that's unheard of to have 1,100 homes on 110 acres or 120 acres. And so that comment came out that we were elitist because our zoning laws, we want large lots. We're not, we want our space. We want our open field. Yes. And that's where that comment came from. So it wasn't about us personally. No, it was about the community.
Yes. I'm glad you set the record straight on that. Yeah, so it came down to 700, which is still a lot. That first proposal that the state was going to force on us had, if you count senior housing, it had 800 apartments in it, which for a city that has none, except for accessory,
it was
a big jump.
The other thing I don't think I knew when I ran was how important for residents to get involved. I mean, you always know that their voice, but I didn't realize that they could move the needle as much. That it appears that if residents will get involved, get a hold of the council, and they're reasonable, you really will listen to them. and you want to see if there's something you can mitigate through the process to help them with their concern. I didn't think, and it does depend on the council. I've been in two different councils, and I've noticed that some councils maybe are better listeners to residents than others. Some are better answering emails better than others. The other thing I didn't recognize was how important it is, if there's a change that's being proposed, is to visit the site, knock the doors of the residents, to make sure you understood either what their concern was or that they're aware of what was happening, so you could get their input. That's really helped me with this decision. Sometimes I maybe thought one thing, then when I got out there and either knocked the door or saw the site, I recognized my thought process was different. The other thing is there's been council members, when we're talking about the county, there's been times I've talked to a council member, they bring up a totally different perspective than what I'd ever thought of, and then that moves the needle the other way.
Yes. I used to feel naked if there wasn't disagreement on the council.
You want that input.
There's always another perspective, and things aren't black and white usually.
Now, where I have struggled on the council, I don't like I haven't had a lot of bad emails, but there's been a couple. I probably gained some pounds from those emails. The other aspect, it's been really hard to see what I personally would perceive a conflict of interest for a council person. And the attorney said there wasn't, but have them move forward still in voting what I would say is an ethical issue. That was hard, and it's something that that's the hard part of government for me. And I know that some people are saying, hey, that was the part of government I hope I wasn't going to see. But now as a council member, I've learned a lot. There's, as a business owner for many years, owning many different businesses, the government functions totally different. If you've ever come to a council meeting, you see I struggle anytime there's an expense the city has to have, and I keep going, why are we buying $50 hammers? That's how I equate. I'm going, what are we doing? Because in a business sense, I didn't have to go and get engineering. I didn't have to go and go get bonds. I didn't recognize, as a business owner, you're going to negotiate. Hey, I'll give you half down, or I'll pay you within 5 days if you give me a discount. In the city, we can't give the money up front. It has to be fully engineered. They've got to be bonded.
You can't do side deals.
You can't. It's been hard because there's times when there's a project and I'm going, if you just let me go and do it, we can get it done at a cost. But that's that slow part of government. That's that part of the government. You have to make sure you're protecting that everyone can participate in the bid process. And that's a big learning aspect. And it's been a good learning for me. It's been a frustration. It's still hard to see the expenses of things. I mean, last night, a shower room and I understand it was an estimate. They're trying to do their best with estimates, but man, I have a hard time spending money sometimes.
And that's good. For residents, we have a guy that rubs 2 pennies together. Right?
I'll pick a penny out.
Anything you want to ask her, Helena?
I'd like to ask, but
Not on the video.
Okay,
thing, so we can discuss.
Well, when we're done, we can.
I have enjoyed. I've really learned a lot on the council. I've enjoyed my association with the staff, with the council members, and I've really learned. It's a different decision process. Like I said, it's hard. A business, you're going to make, maybe one person makes the decision. So as we look at the county, I see, hey, you got 3. It'd be so frustrating if there's 3, and you can't meet with just 2 of you to discuss a business idea or a concept. That would be frustrating me. It's frustrating. I've had to learn that the council, that if it be a Monday night before a council member, or like we have a work session, I'm trying to get hold of some of the council members to understand what's going on. We have, I think me and you are meeting with one to go through what you want to propose. It's just a slow process to kind of get things done, and that's a learning process. So, but thank you for electing me, let me have this learning experience. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I've loved the residents. They're better than I thought. The residents are, when I meet them, they are really good. And if you can sit down and let them talk to you, I call it the feel one another. you can respect. There's some that you're not gonna, you go, I don't agree there, but we can come up with respect. There's some council members that, you brought up Brian Braithwaite. I miss Brian on the council.
Me too.
And there's times I remember when me and Brian were on opposite ends. He was fighting here, but I respected when he brought me into a meeting. It was about the Mountain Ridge Park, the pickleballs. There was a group that was fighting the pickleball courts, and I was the council member not in favor, because he brought me with the group that was going to attack him in a sense. And I asked Brian, I said, why did you invite me when you know that I was with that group instead of support for you? He goes, I thought it was important for you to hear their input and then to kind of hear mine. And I thought, yeah, it gave me respect. That Brian taught me. I miss because I learned a lot from that. Brian was a council member.
He was. We're not talking past tense of Brian. He's still around and he's helping, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you've learned a lot about sewer.
Sewers, about parks, about open space. I had no idea about the issues in open space around that. I knew because I don't live in the open space, and I do have a great desire to try to help. But at the same time, I guess I always look at it from the non-open space person. But I try to put myself in the open space. You're paying $20 a month by getting the service, and what was really the agreement when it came in, and that is an issue as a city we've got to try to address.
Yes, and there's always surprises. Like was last night, the cemetery. Did you see that coming?
No, and I'm a little frustrated. You hear we had a bond payment that I don't know if we missed. And this many years ago that cost the city was it $500,000. 400,000. Well, last night we found out about the cemetery. There was a contractual agreement entered into with some wording. And when you hear it's going to cost $376,000 or
350-ish.
That's hard to swallow because you go, now where's the city going to get that? And some people, hey, that's for Spanish. You go, okay, guys, we're going back in 2008. We're going to try to fix what was done. I don't think anyone did it intentionally, but it's a big dollar amount.
It's a big dollar amount. Yeah.
That was a hard one. That's still going to be a hard one. That's still going forward.
Yeah. The issue at hand was the way our contracts for the cemetery are written now. When you buy a plot, you buy the plot, and then when it comes time to bury your loved one, you pay to open the ground and you pay to close it. Those contracts, you can kind of tell the intent, but the way they were actually worded was you bought the plot and you got, as part of the paying for the plot, you got your burial taken care of as well. And so when we look at it from a lost revenue point of view, we're going to lose $350,000.
And that's over
a long period of time.
It's a long. I mean, people are gonna maybe they don't. You're talking that could be 90 years before they try to open that plot up. But
hopefully 90.
Yeah, but that's it's the opportunity cost of revenue versus maybe our expense, depending on what the expense is there.
But that just came out of the blue. It was something that was uncovered and investigated, and wow, we have a problem. Just like the 400,000 you talked about,
yeah.
we found out that we had agreed to pay for part of the infrastructure costs related to a road. The developer that was associated with that went out of business and filed bankruptcy. We had an impact fee associated with homes in that area that got removed that would have paid for that. We just didn't know. We are talking about former councils a long time ago. Removed it because they couldn't figure out what's this impact fee going to, because they'd forgotten about this contract bond thing. Well, then somebody out of bankruptcy bought that and then sent us a note. And their first note was, you owe us $1 million. We ended up settling for $400,000. But that was a hard pill to swallow because nobody saw that one coming. And that's a big chunk of change to just say, okay, you have to come up with it today. And that happens occasionally. You
And just full disclosure, I recused myself because my family had bought cemetery plots between that time period. I think it was 2008 to 2016. I don't know if the contract affects us because it wasn't every contract, but I thought I can't help make a decision because this affects me, and it's hard because now it affects the city, and you feel bad for stuff that way.
You do. But the one thing you've noticed this, that our employees by and large are really dedicated, trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of feedback, positive. Occasionally we get some negative feedback, but I would just.
They could have pushed this one underneath the rug. It wasn't something that was uncovered. It was we were doing some audits. An employee found it, and I appreciated that employee being very forthright when it came about. Sought the attorney's, I think our attorney's opinion, brought it then to the minister, and then brought it to the council. I mean, it's not a fun subject, but it could have been, oh, we got a thing and let's hide this. It was brought up.
Mistake that somebody made. Anyway, that's any advice to people considering running, because we do have an election next year. Don't.
No, there's two things. Personally, I understand there's going to maybe be some that want to run maybe for a specific topic of thing. We very rarely is it just that one item that we're going to be working on in the council. You have to kind of you're going to be hitting myriad of things. Like you said, there might be a sewer issue one night. You're going to be dealing with garbage contracts. You might be dealing with some ordinances, with dogs. You're going to have open space issues. You could have land issues. You're going to have employment issues. That was the other thing I didn't recognize. When we would go into closed session about the discussion about employees. When I very first came in, it seemed that first year was a ton of employee issues, and they were hard that were coming. If it be from the public safety side, if it be some changes in employment, and nothing wrong with our employees, but it just does seem like there's sometimes litigious situations that happen in the city government. It seems like everyone always says, "Hey, let's try to seek some legal recourse," and but it's mellowed down, I think, over the last year or two.
That part has, yes.
Yeah, and that helps also with cost of the city because you're not spending out so much on attorneys or on settlements.
Yes. And there are residents who have issues with the city, and one way they want to resolve them is to go the attorney route, and so that's when we meet in closed session too. Just talk about that. And
so we've got so be aware. If there's why I think you have to say, why do I want to get involved? Some want to maybe move on to something bigger and better. I don't know if that's why they get involved. It's get involved if you want to help people. If you enjoy. Personally, I was nervous knocking doors, but once I started knocking doors, it energized me. I think you're going to have to be willing to talk with people, get out there into the areas where it's going on. The other thing is be aware financially, it does cost some money to run. That's when I asked about when I talked with one or two former council members, how much they thought it would cost to run, to put a campaign on, to do some mailers, get the banners, to do some things. What they told me, it was double to triple once, at least the way I spent. So maybe you want to go look at campaign finances. Don't want to scare it in a way, but there'll be people.
It does cost money.
But people will help. I think Brittany mentioned she didn't have to spend anything. She got supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do it where, if you just got to make sure that you're willing to ask and go out there and
it does take time.
It does take time.
And you do need to talk to people. I think that for me was one of the most valuable things, was just knocking on doors, because now you get a broad perspective. And it was always funny, knock one door in one neighborhood and they rail on this one thing. You go to another neighborhood and they bring up the same issue, but their point of view is 180 degrees different. Like, it's just, okay, you gotta figure out, well, what's going on here. And a lot of the time when people are concerned, and I say this in a kind way, and I have this all the time, it's because you just don't know. You just don't know all the rest of the story. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Mr. Paul and his rest of the story on the radio.
Well, like you knock at one door, you can knock at a door and a person says, hey, we don't want a rec center in Highland.
Yes.
And then you knock at the next door and they say, we don't want any expenses we want no new taxes. And I would like you to get rid of the following services in the city. And if you brought up rec center, that the one thing I did learn when I knocked one of the doors, I did not agree with the person, but they turned around when we were leaving. They said, I appreciate you taking the time and you do have my vote. And that really let me go, okay, they appreciate that you're putting time. That's, if you ask, that's one thing I need to put the time. If I'm going to be elected official, please put the time in. There's nothing more frustrating than someone coming to council meeting that hasn't read the agenda, or if there's some issues that maybe they haven't visited with some residents or answered emails. It's obvious on the council who is engaged with the residents because it helps you with your decision process.
Yeah, and I found it's nice being there where you don't have to vote. You can observe a little bit more. But what I have found is each member of council has their own constituency that talks to them about different issues in different ways. And there are some people that, they'll send emails to council, and then one council member will talk to them and they'll respond, and another person will talk to them or will talk to them in the future. Say similar things, but in different ways, but the response is different. So it's nice that there's a diversity of people on the council, and just Kurt does spend a lot of time.
Well, no, but the one thing I have appreciated, we have Brittany and Kim of the female persuasion. Right. They're talking to totally different people than I think the council before. Right. And so I think it's given a voice to a different sector of it. And I've appreciated it because they're bringing in a different point of view that maybe hasn't been present. And I do think females on the council are beneficial. I think they calm the council down. I think they give a different perspective. So I have enjoyed having females in the council.
Me too.
So I just do.
So I'm all in for that because it's a different. The tone is different. They talk to different people differently, and we get more input, more different kinds of input, and I think that makes for better decision making going forward. Even though, like you said, sometimes it takes longer than you initially want, but some of these decisions are forever decisions.
Yeah. And that's a nervousness.
Yes.
There's some that if you go, okay, if I really messed up. Like we voted on the signs. I know that was, right. I was the deciding vote. I'm going, okay, if we really get going and see that there was either, the one I think Tim Ball brought up, he thought it was a freedom issue, that the people should be able to have that hit a course fee. And I'm going, I am nervous. Did we affect those who are not well known? Did we affect some freedoms? And if it looks like that was the case, I'll probably be one of the first. Let's get it back out and look at a different venue. And but going forward, I felt like I'd heard a lot from the other residents going. It felt cluttery in the city, and I do recognize that there's times we do have sometimes wind in Highland that will blow signs different places or rip signs down, and so it looks kind of bad amongst the city. And I mean, so that was the attorney mentioning that hey, how you going to govern what sign it is really sweet. But at the same time, the value of freedom, the value of able to express or what you want to say, that protest. And so I'm willing to kind of go forward, but that's one that I might be willing to relook at again.
And we've been back and forth now, right? We disallowed them, we allowed them, and now we're back to disallowing temporary signs on public property.
But that's something, if we see that needs to come back and go,
we can
got to be big enough to say, okay, maybe we didn't make the best decision.
And that's one, you're right, would easily be changed if we wanted to, and there's no long-term per se impact. Whereas where you put a road or when you build a park, what you put in it is definitely more permanent.
Well, and I think as the councils, we brought up open space. If they would have known in '99 what we know in 2020, how would the decision been done? Yeah. That's when open space started. Yeah. Okay, has it been that good? When I read it, they talked about that they didn't want HOAs. That was the concern, was that HOA would not maintain as well as the city. Well, what we get as negative comments is the city's not maintaining them. Would we design the parks? Would we have as many parks? Would we have as many trails? Would we have the open space field? I believe the open space has valued the city as a feeling. I think those open space communities have helped some. I mean, some of the concerns we had was we had only all large lots. And some were concerned with the large lots. People were not maintaining the backyard or putting them in. It was hard to maintain the large yard. I think it's helped our community kind of become a little more level where it's not just all large lots, but it's also kept the open feel.
Yep.
We'll see. The open space is the issue that's going to really have a lot of communication in next year.
Yes, there will be, and just so you know, the council has been working on this and thinking about it for the last year. So
we've been thinking about it before, but we're trying to.
But we have a new council. So.
Or we can make some steps. Are we going to be able to resolve where everyone is happy? I think it's going to be a pain for I think you're going to mitigate concerns.
Yes.
And do your best. It might be small steps, and those small steps does change course a little bit. So
one thing that happened this year, we put seal coat on over 60% of our trails that have. I don't know that they've ever had seal coat.
I don't think they ever have since they went down.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think what we call the Frog Pond Trail, having what we just had with Reinhardt or the Millhaven development come in and start to add. One of the concerns I've always had is 9600 North and the residents in that area really don't have a trail to come connect to the Murdoch Trail.
Yes.
And when I talk to residents, that area is where we don't have good trail connections. So I'm hoping we can kind of get down there. It might even go all the way down into American Fork if we're looking. That's one of the regional trails.
It's designed to go down to the equestrian center, and that's where it starts and ends. And we have easements to 9600. So if we wanted to, we could continue that down.
And I guess
build them to 9600.
Because when I talk to I know I get nervous. 96 doesn't have a lot of sidewalks. Even 6800 West, there's some sections that don't have good sidewalks on them, and so people are walking. That's where Mountain Ridge. You go over to Mountain Ridge, we have a junior high that doesn't have good sidewalks. They have to cross the road. 6000 West. Are we going to get sidewalks that cost a lot of money? That's the other thing. It's not like we can go and how do you generate by raising taxes, which no one wants. It's not like, that's hard. I'm not a real advocate trying to go out there and try to increase revenue. I'm nervous. We have, during COVID, what were we up? 13% in our sales tax revenue. Well, in Highland, we benefit because we got a lot of online sales tax. Well, if COVID starts to slow down, then people start to go back to brick and mortar, and then our sales tax slows down. We look rosy right now. We don't know.
We just don't
and it
know.
might be that everything's bought online and we just keep increasing, and we look like we're one of the smarter cities that didn't build a ton of brick and mortar. We didn't rely on that for revenue. Our revenue source is the future. You don't know.
No, but we are where we are, and we're in a pretty better circumstance than we thought.
Yes.
And so we're almost out of time. Anybody have any questions about anything going on in the city right now? You're welcome to ask anything on the chat. How many people do we have with us? We may have lost all of our audience. Where's the count on there?
Is it 3?
3.
You got 3.
We got 3 and 1 like. Yes, okay.
As we start talking.
Scott Larson. I was a little late. So Scott, we may have covered what your questions were. Feel free to ask. Is there a summary of the meeting? Well, on the comment section, relative to the Proposition 9, I did share a document that's a Google Doc that kind of goes over the history of the change of government, it has links to different articles about it, links to the pro and con sites, and some of the issues that we felt were common in the different forums that we were at. So feel free to look at that. If you click on that link, and it doesn't get you where you want to be, then call me. Or if you click on the link and you say you're missing something, go ahead and send me an email or text me or come to the office. You can do any of those 3 and to let me know what's going on there. So then we just of late, he was just talking about Kurt and his experience and some of the wisdom that he has to share with residents.
Is it wisdom?
Well, it's earned. Okay. And I think it's wisdom. I've learned a lot from Kurt, so I appreciate his service and the other council members as well. And we'll have other council members join me in coming months.
I appreciate the opportunity.
So thank you, Kurt, for signing on. Thank you for joining us. And we appreciate you taking the time, not watching the presidential debate. This one would probably not be as heated as the last one. We'll see. I've got it DVR'd, so we'll see when I get home. All right. Thank you again, and we'll see you next month. Next month, it will be the second Wednesday of the month instead of the first. This time we just had spring break or fall break happen during that time. It was hard to get people. We will drive safely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
You have to turn.
Oh, and yes, I really want to end.
Okay.